What if the old copper coins resting at the bottom of a forgotten jar or tucked away in an inherited cigar box hold a story that most people completely overlook? Millions of Americans have handled the iconic Lincoln wheat penny, passing these small pieces of copper through countless cash registers, vending machines, and piggy banks across the decades. For most, these coins are simply charming relics of a bygone era, worth a few cents over their face value due to their copper content. Yet, experienced numismatists understand that the true narrative of these coins is far more complex. The difference between an ordinary circulated penny and a genuine numismatic treasure is rarely obvious to the untrained eye. It requires a deep understanding of historical context, precise manufacturing specifications, rigorous grading standards, and the subtle variations that occur when millions of coins are struck under immense industrial pressure. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, revolutionized American coinage by becoming the first widely circulating coin to feature a real historical figure. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse portrait of the nation's 16th president became an enduring symbol of American resilience, while the reverse featured two stylized wheat stalks framing the denomination, a design that would remain in production for half a century. As the world transitioned through the turbulent middle decades of the 20th century, the United States Mint continued to produce these familiar copper coins, each year telling a unique story of economic shifts, post-war recovery, and industrial capability. Today, we are undertaking a meticulous examination of three specific issues from this remarkable era. By investigating the subtle details that separate common pocket change from elite registry-quality specimens, you will discover why certain authenticated examples have captured the intense focus of advanced collectors and what these surviving pieces reveal about the complex intersection of history, preservation, and market demand. 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny. The year 1940 represented a profound moment of transition for the United States, and that transformation was directly reflected in the nation's coinage. The Second World War had finally concluded, and the American economy was rapidly shifting from wartime production back to peacetime commerce. During the height of the conflict in 1943, the severe shortage of copper forced the United States Mint to strike pennies in zinc-coated steel. In 1944 and 1945, the Mint utilized salvaged brass from spent artillery shell casings to produce the cent. However, by 1946, the crisis had passed, and the Mint officially returned to the pre-war standard bronze composition. This alloy, consisting of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, restored the traditional weight of 3.19 grams and the standard diameter of 19.05 millimeters. Millions of these cents poured out of the Philadelphia Mint, instantly recognizable by the deliberate absence of a mint mark beneath the date. Because the Philadelphia facility was tasked with supplying commerce for a rapidly expanding post-war economy, production figures were staggering. The sheer volume of 1946 Lincoln cents struck means that this date is fundamentally common in circulated condition. Countless examples survive today in grades of good, very good, and fine, displaying flattened wheat lines, worn cheekbones on Lincoln's portrait, and darkened chocolate brown surfaces that have absorbed decades of environmental exposure and human handling. These highly circulated pieces, while historically fascinating, represent only a marginal premium over face value. However, the numismatic landscape shifts dramatically when evaluating examples that manage to escape the channels of commerce entirely. Advanced collectors actively pursue the absolute finest known survivors, relying upon the internationally recognized Sheldon grading scale to distinguish between an ordinary uncirculated coin and a true condition rarity. For copper coinage, surface preservation and original color are paramount. Third-party grading services meticulously categorize these coins by color, assigning designations of brown, red-brown, or the highly coveted full red. A 1946 Lincoln cent that retains its blazing original mint luster, displaying the uninterrupted cartwheel effect created by microscopic metal flow lines during the striking process, enters a completely different echelon of the collector market. In exceptional grades such as Mint State 67 Full Red, an authenticated 1946 penny can command figures ranging from several hundred to over $1,000, depending on eye appeal and competitive bidding. This exponential leap in value is driven by the extreme rarity of flawless preservation. Furthermore, the high-speed production required to meet the demands of 1946 occasionally resulted in genuine manufacturing anomalies. Specialists carefully examined the date, the lettering of Liberty, and In God We Trust, and the wheat stalks for evidence of double dies, clipped planchets, or off-center strikes. While the 1946 Philadelphia issue does not feature a universally famous blockbuster error, the discovery of a professionally authenticated dramatic production mistake combined with exceptional mint state preservation invariably triggers intense competition among specialists. Yet, experts consistently warn against the deceptive nature of post-mint damage. Environmental corrosion, machine doubling, and artificial chemical cleaning are frequently misrepresented as valuable errors by inexperienced sellers. Authentic value in the 1946 Lincoln cent is firmly anchored in unadulterated originality, sharp strike quality, and independent professional certification. 1952, D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. As the United States moved into the early 1950s, the nation found itself engaged in the Korean War while simultaneously experiencing a massive domestic economic boom. The demand for circulating coinage skyrocketed as consumer spending surged and the post-war middle class expanded. To meet this insatiable demand, the Denver Mint, located in Colorado and identified by the small D Mint mark positioned squarely beneath the date, operated at an extraordinary capacity. The 1952 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny. And wheat penny is a direct product of this intense industrial output. Adhering to the standard 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin alloy, these coins were struck by the hundreds of millions, shipped in heavy canvas bags, and immediately dispersed across the western and central United States. Because production volumes were so immense, the 1952 D penny is incredibly abundant in heavily circulated grades. For decades, they were a staple of everyday transactions, and today they are frequently found in estate hoards and bulk copper lots. A standard circulated example with heavy wear and darkened surfaces holds tremendous sentimental and historical value, but carries minimal financial premium in the sophisticated collector marketplace. The true numismatic intrigue of the 1952 D lies in the profound challenge of finding a flawlessly struck, pristine example. During this period, the Denver Mint frequently utilized coin dies long past their optimal lifespan in an effort to maintain production quotas. As these steel dies slowly degraded under the relentless pressure of striking millions of hard copper planchets, the resulting coins often exhibited significant manufacturing compromises. It is remarkably common to find 1952 D pennies with mushy details, soft hair on Lincoln's portrait, poorly defined wheat lines, and heavy die flow lines that disrupt the smooth fields of the coin. Consequently, a 1952 D penny that somehow emerged from fresh, sharply detailed dies and avoided the devastating contact marks of the automated sorting and bagging processes is a genuine rarity. When elite collectors compete to assemble registry sets of the finest known Lincoln cents, they scrutinize these specific strike characteristics with microscopic intensity. An authenticated specimen grading Mint State 67 Full Red, featuring a razor-sharp strike, flawless fields, and brilliant, untouched copper luster, represents a fraction of a percent of the total surviving population. Such extraordinary pieces routinely command thousands of dollars at major auction houses because they represent an almost impossible survival rate. In addition to condition rarities, the 1952 D is celebrated among variety specialists who hunt for repunched mint marks, commonly referred to as RPMs. Before the 1990s, mint marks were hand-punched into the individual working dies by mint engravers. Occasionally, a misplaced initial strike was followed by a corrective second or even third strike, leaving a distinct overlapping impression of the D mint mark. Some of these documented RPM varieties are highly sought after, but they require expert attribution. Advanced collectors rely on precision magnification and published reference guides to differentiate a genuine repunched mint mark from common machine doubling, which adds no value. Proper preservation remains the critical defining factor. Even a highly desirable variety loses substantial collector appeal if the coin has been improperly stored, subjected to high humidity, or stripped of its natural surfaces by abrasive cleaning. 1953 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny, the mid-20th century. American economic engine continued to accelerate into the Eisenhower era, and the 1953 D. Lincoln Wheat Penny stands as a testament to the immense scale of the nation's commercial activity. Struck at the Denver Mint with the familiar D Mint mark below the date, this issue boasts a mintage that soared past the 700 million mark. It was an era of expanding suburbs, new highway systems, and a rapidly growing population that required an endless supply of small change. Given this astronomical mintage, it is entirely expected that the 1953 D remains one of the most readily available dates in the entire Lincoln Wheat series for those assembling casual circulated sets. When sifting through bulk accumulations, collectors will encounter countless examples exhibiting the natural, worn, chocolate brown patina that copper develops after decades of exposure to the oils of human hands and the elements of the environment. These highly circulated coins are inexpensive and easily acquired, reinforcing the false assumption that all 1953 D pennies are common. However, the sophisticated numismatic market operates on the principle of extreme conditional rarity, and the 1953 D provides a perfect illustration of this dynamic. The same immense production pressures that plagued the Denver Mint in 1952 were fully present, if not amplified, in 1953. Quality control often took a secondary role to sheer output volume. As a result, the overwhelming majority of uncirculated 1953 D cents suffer from weak strikes, heavily abraded surfaces from colliding with other coins in the massive mint bins, and spotted or uneven coloration. Locating a gem-quality specimen is an exercise in extreme patience and rigorous visual discipline. Specialists evaluating this date look for full, rounded definition in Lincoln's cheek and jawline, crisp separation in the individual kernels of the wheat stalks on the reverse, and a completely unblemished blazing red surface. When a coin meets these stringent criteria and achieves a grade of Mint State 67 full red from a top-tier third-party grading service, it transcends its status as a 1-cent piece and becomes a highly liquid, highly desirable financial asset. Verified auction records demonstrate that the finest authenticated survivors of this date can realize prices well into the thousands of dollars, a staggering premium driven exclusively by the near impossibility of such perfect preservation. Furthermore, the 1953 D is notorious among variety collectors for a specific type of manufacturing flaw known as the BIE error. As the obverse dies deteriorated from extended use, small cracks would frequently develop in the steel. One of the most common locations for these die cracks was between the letters B and E in the word Liberty. As metal flowed into this crack during the striking process, it created a raised blob that closely resembled an uppercase letter I, hence the nickname BIE error. While usually not commanding the astronomical premiums of major double dies or off-center strikes, authenticated BIE errors hold a dedicated following and add a fascinating layer of specialized collecting to the 1953 D issue. Additionally, specialists actively search for repunched mint marks, carefully documenting the varying positions and spreads of the underlying D punches. As with all high-value numismatic items, the marketplace is unforgiving of altered or cleaned coins. The original delicate copper surfaces must be protected at all costs. Experienced numismatists strictly handle such pieces only by the edges, employing archival quality inert holders to shield the metal from the destructive effects of moisture and atmospheric sulfur. Ultimately, the 1953 D Lincoln cent perfectly encapsulates the philosophy of modern coin collecting. True rarity is almost never a function of how many coins were originally produced, but rather how few have managed to survive the brutal gauntlet of time, commerce, and improper handling to remain as flawless as the moment they were struck.